I can't quite. Hi, my name's Fawn like a baby deer, and welcome to my channel. Recently, I have been in a sewing mood, particularly for something historical, particularly for something 18th century. Now, I'm not usually a historical seamstress. I'm actually quite awful at historical garments. I hold absolutely no confidence in myself when it comes to them, like at all. But the mood doth strucketh me, and here I am. I blame the following list of historical costume YouTubers that I have been binge watching the past few months. Nonetheless, inspiration has pierced me, and I will take on this project of a historical and yet not quite historical garment. Now, I'm not fully ready to take on something like une robe à la française ou une robe à l'anglaise, mais peut-être dans le futur. J'aimerais ça. I figured something more suitable for someone like moi would be a milkmaid. You see, I was browsing Pinterest, as you do, when I came across this photo of Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette, where I gasped at the image and immediately pinned it to my board. I adore this film. There are so many amazing costumes in this film that I still think about to this day. One of them being the beautiful powder blue dress that Marie wears when she first enters France, as well as this costume, the Milkmaid, that gets showcased in a play for like 8 seconds. I've never sewn anything 18th century before, let alone something 18th century inspired before, so I thought this project would do me a dandy. Now, my dear old costume professor always told us students to start with the foundation, such as the undergarments, and I knew just the place to start, which was actually with this, the American Duchess 18th century dressmaking. Not only do I own their books, but I own a couple of patterns as well, quite a few of them actually, which I wanted to see what their patterns were like and also use the information in the book, so I ended up using both. I'm glad I did, because this project ended up being way more than I thought it was going to be, and it probably would have been twice as bad if I were to draft it. So let's get started. Now, I won't be making this exact version because I have some fabric already in mind for this project. Therefore, I will be making something a bit more inspired off of the Milkmaid outfit. For my fabric, I have this beautiful forest critter nursery print that I got years ago at Joann's and hoarded like 8 yards of it, and I still have so much. I would also be using this linen scrap for the stays linings, and I got 5 yards of Dupioni silk from Silk Baron in the color Periwinkle. 5 yards ended up being way too much, and I really only ended up using about 3. The first thing I worked on was the bum pad, using the American Duchess pattern, Simplicity 8162. It's straightforward and very easy as it's only 2 pattern pieces. I pinned the appropriate amount of twill tape to each corner of the bum pad, tacked them in place, and then put that off to the side so I then can work on the ruffle, which I pinned all of the edges together to make one long strip, sewed each of the strip pieces together, and then roll hemmed the entire thing. Later, using 2 rows of loose stitches to gather the strip of material to create ruffles, which I then pinned the ruffles to the right side of the fabric going inwards, making sure that they were evenly distributed across the bum pad. Then sewed the ruffles down by sandwiching it between the front and the back piece, trimming and clipping the seam, then turning the garment inside out, and then ironing it. Then using a water-soluble marker to mark out and sew the lines using the pattern as a guide. No. My stupid iron just like spit back and got like my pretty white thing all dirty. There's like a stain on it now.
I'm sorry. Can it be washed?
I'm so sad about it. Damn it. After crying over my stained garment and then realizing it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, I stuffed the garment appropriately, making sure not to overstuff, and then slip stitched it closed. So, forgive my face, but I'm in the middle of cutting out the pattern pieces. I come across this piece, which is supposed to be the sleeve, which is literally just a rectangle, as all of these patterns usually are. Looking back at the image, and it looks like the sleeves are just a little bit puffier. I'm going to widen this out a bit, I think. Yeah. I think I'm going to widen it out so then and I'm going to probably make it maybe a little longer. That's my dishwasher, sorry. Once I figured out the exact style of the sleeve I wanted, I went ahead and taped my pattern down and then marked out the new length that I wanted using a ruler. I cut out that piece so then it would be easier for me to do a very janky version of the slash and spread method. It had been a really long time since I had done the slash and spread method, and it still worked. Once I spread the strips out to exactly how I wanted them, I went ahead and retaped it all down to a new piece of paper, tracing out the whole shape, making sure all of my notches were transferred to the new pattern, and then cutting it all out again. I'm just gonna keep going until I get this chemise done tonight. The American Duchess pattern actually does a really great job in explaining the construction of this chemise. It was really easy for me to edit the pattern, and I don't know what I was thinking, but that chemise, I got possibly halfway through before realizing this was way more than I thought it was gonna be. Garrett, all I hear you is smacking your butt.
How are you?
You got a dump truck of an ass, Garrett. Sorry. Alright, look, I edited this pattern and I just had a hell of a time in some areas. I wasn't sure how to properly finish the seams because I didn't want to serge it, but I also wanted to finish the seams, which I ended up felling every single seam down, which was the only thing exhausting for me. Yo, this took me way longer than I expected it to. I kind of feel defeated. Look, I'm a good seamstress, but I am not good when it comes to like historical stuff. But I did this. I did this. Great.
The next day.
Okay, so I was really into the project last night that I forgot to film doing the under petticoat, but here it is. Oh, that was really exposed. Way easier than I thought. So I'm basically going to make the same thing out of the silk fabric. I proudly used the American Duchess book for this entire portion. It was very, very easy. I took the precious Dupioni silk, cut two pieces that were 60 inches wide by 45 inches long, marked off 10 inches from the top, made a small clip, then from the clip down, sewed French seams. With the open 10 inches, I rolled the edges inward, pressed down, and sewed them to create the pocket openings. For the pleating, I ended up folding both the front and back fabric in half and then pressed that down so I had a nice crisp seam, placed a pin in it, and then marked 1.5 inches on each side from the pin. I went ahead and folded each side inward towards the pin, creating a box pleat in the center of the garment. Then I went ahead and knife pleated on each side of the box pleat to where the entire front equaled to half of my waist measurement. For an example, my waist measurement was 28 inches. Divide that by 2 equals to 14. So that means the entire front panel had to equal to 14 inches, which is why you see me measuring each side of the box pleat, making sure that it's approximately 7 inches to equal to the 14. For the back panel, I went ahead and instead of doing a box pleat in the middle, I did an inverted box pleat and the knife pleated on each of the sides. I ended up giving the front and the back a small waistband, taking a 2-inch strip by 16 inches and then rolling in each side twice because it's silk and I didn't want it to unravel completely. I pinned one of the waistbands to the front and one of the waistbands to the back, sewed it down on the machine, folded it over, and then hand stitched it closed. I ended up cutting about 18 inches of twill tape to make up each side of the ties. Taking one side of the ties, I folded it twice and then slipped it into the waistband so I could sew on top of it later. After I placed the skirt on the dress form, I cut it to the length that I wanted it to, making sure it was even, and then hemmed it for its finish. Yo, trying to like fucking talk like this is difficult. I really wanted the main seam of the fabric to be in the middle of the stays, so I was very picky about placement and ended up having to refold the fabric in order for me to cut out the pieces. Step 1, put it all together. Step 2, don't fuck up.
72 hours later.
Okay, so I kind of had a horrible day today. So I'm just gonna sew. I need to get this corset done so I can move on to some other projects. I will probably just do a nice aesthetic sewing. It's like nighttime, so just bear with me. Thank you. I should be working on this corset, but I'm not. I have no motivation today. However, I will say the most difficult part about this pattern was transferring over all of the boning channel lines and trying to figure out the proper placement for them. Essentially, I would use the gauge to measure out all of the lines that were on the pattern piece, and then I would plot them onto the fabric using a water-soluble marker. I'm sorry, I had to. I'm so sorry. It's just, I had to. I'm letting you know now that this is much more complicated. Just putting in the boning as I go is very interesting. Because you would end up sewing other channels over each other, you actually had to place in the boning pieces as you were sewing. I ended up using thick zip ties for this, cutting them down to size, sanding the edges, making sure there were no pokey bits, and then shoving them into their channels and sewing them shut.
You good?
A bug just like landed on my project. It's like a little beetle.
Oh, he's just a little guy.
Come on, get up. Come on. There we go. Come on, get on there.
He's getting out of there.
He's got it. He's on here.
Talented.
He's got pretty little, like a little chevron pattern on his body. I ended up looking up what these were, and they're carpet beetles, which if you know what that means, then you now know that I have a problem. I did it. I did it. All of the bones are in. It's 3:26 a.m. and I'm still not done with this corset. But I did get all of the boning in, and I made bias tape. I'm exhausted. Okay, today is just like the third day on just the corset. I'm almost there. However, this is what it looks like so far. I learned quite a lot on this journey. Here's the plan. So the next step is to put the bias tape on the edges here, and it says to like put the bias tape on and then sew across. And there goes my camera. So put it on here and then like sew it through and across. And I don't have the confidence to do that because of how tiny I've made this bias tape. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up, sew it down like that in the machine, and then flip it over and then hand sew the back, because I've seen this pattern done before, and when they put the bias tape on, it's kind of messy looking and I don't want it to look like that. So I'm hoping to not make this a messy situation and just put it on there nicely. Wish me luck. Change of plans on this whole bottom piece. I'm just gonna hand sew the whole thing. I don't want to risk it, especially since the top actually turned out really nicely. I later ended up finding out that hand stitching the entire bottom piece is actually the best way to go for this. Lots of back stitching and then lots of whip stitching. Also, warning, I'm genuinely terrible at putting in eyelets. I don't know why. I feel like I've tried every single method out there and I always end up like accidentally smashing them. I still smash these ones, but I do cover them later, so I'm okay with that. Pattern calls for the eyelets to basically be done by hand, but I don't have the confidence in doing that. So I was like, oh, I think I'm just going to add regular eyelets and then cover them. But I'm also not the best at putting in like regular metal eyelets either. So a lot of them are like weirdly kind of messed up. This is the first time I've ever covered eyelets in embroidery floss. So my first two were horrendous, as you can see. But then they have slowly gotten better the more I go. Here I am, just doing this. I'm learning, but you know, we're all learning here. Also, I'm really impressed with myself with matching this embroidery thread because I did not have a swatch on me when I went to go match this. And I would like compliments on that, please. Also, does anybody play The Sims? I have had some drama happening in my Sims game. And then finally, after like 2 weeks, this was done. I am very proud of myself through this journey. It was a lot. I'm really proud of myself that I took this on. I'm like super motivated to do more kind of like historical stuff. This is, you know, semi-historical. I don't know where the rest of that footage went. Like, I filmed a whole outro and it's just gone. So, long story short, I thoroughly enjoyed the process of creating something 18th century. It's one of my favorite eras and I'm glad I finally got to do it. I will very much be doing more in the future. The entire outfit took me about a week and a half to accomplish. Editing this video has taken me longer. Anyways, my name's Fawn like a baby deer. I just like to make stuff, and if you want to stick around to watch me make stuff, please subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll see you on the flip side. Bye-bye! Wait, were you really not recording? Like this whole time?